it will be around 90K in this market. And if I want to trade another Bitcoin, it will still be around $90K. I will not say I can trade this Bitcoin with 90K with another Bitcoin is 29K. So that's what fungible means. Each token value is pretty much equivalent. And then there's the opposite, what the non-fungible token. That means, okay, I have this sort of like specific NFT stuff, the token, which actually has a pretty different and unique market value from another one. And that can be represented, for example, as an art, because each art piece is pretty unique value, and the node usually have like the same market value across them. Like, yeah, hopefully that sort of explains like what is NFT. Go to the next slides. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I explained. So one BTC equals one BTC, and one NFT doesn't equal one NFT. So okay, hopefully people understand like what is NFT now on a very high level. But you might actually come next question. Okay, why is it even useful? Why do I care? It sounds like pretty much scammy. And in the mainstream use, it's like, okay, there's a lot of scammings, and lots of like crypto scammers on Twitter, on Instagram, all those are mainstream social media platforms. So why do I even bother about NFTs? It feels like it may be even just a solution that's looking for a problem that doesn't even exist. Or is it? Let's actually take a look. So yeah, I want to just shadowly address a couple use cases which I see pretty fit for the NFT technology. Probably not going to be widely adopted today, but it will probably, maybe, I hope, will be adopted by the mainstream in the next couple of years. And the first use case is actually a proof of ownership. So it is true, you will have like critical moments in your life, like your marriage, like your graduation, and maybe your first international travel, etc. And sometimes you will be awarded some like certificates, the diploma, in those like critical events in your lifetime. And right now, those are usually awarded in the paper format, or maybe a digital format, or this digital format also in the centralized, the controlled entities. But if you want to actually have a sort of like digital representation that can actually prove, okay, you actually own this cert, and actually and makes you can tell everyone, okay, this is indeed my critical moment in my lifetime. And how do you do that? And NFT is actually one way to do it. And yeah, I want to use this as actually the first one is the art-based proof of ownership. So this actually happened before. So in the NFT, those like art-based artists issued NFTs, actually it happened that the later come artists, they were trying to plagiarize the former artists for the sort of the art style. But this can actually be like publicly proved that this is a plagiarism, which was not very easily provable previously. Because previously when you try to like plagiarize the copyright, there was no like public stamp. And right now in the blockchain, when the first artist actually say, okay, I want to issue those NFTs, these NFTs can actually be minted on the epoch 1, which is like the first timestamp on the blockchain. Does that make sense so far? And then in the next block, okay, the other two, which is the copyright, the plagiarism author try to mint the very similar style art. They actually mint on the epoch 3, which actually comes later than epoch 1. And what that means is, okay, this is all publicly provable that the author 1 is the original author, and author 3 is actually not. So that's like one use case. And it's actually being used a couple of times to catch some like plagiarism authors already in the NFT marketplace. Right, and another one is the housing titles. This one may not be trivial, but it's actually something that's being developed. So right now, actually, yeah, this is what I quote from the American Title Land Association. So about like 25% of the U.S. residential real estate transactions have some like title problems during the transactions, and these frictions can just not be easily resolved with current intermediary escrow system. And can we actually think about an alternative like system or like a trustless mechanism? And NFT actually presents as a potential solution, which there's one company called Bitfan actually is working on this for the African-based land titles. So what it does is, so in today's real estate world, we have the buyer, we have the seller, and the buyer seller have the broker. And then there's the escrow as the intermediary to make sure the title can transfer from buyer to seller with couple pretty long and sometimes error-prone process to gradually and transiently transfer the titles from buyers and sellers. But what if we can actually have a more efficient way to say, okay, buyers can actually prove to the potential seller, I own this house, without first revealing too much details. Okay, I don't have to like tell you like exactly my house details, like my house locations and who am I, but I can actually publicly prove to you that I own this house. So that, okay, you don't need to worry about the housing titles and then we can actually move forward in the next step. So this is actually possible with the NFT. So NFT can be modeled as a housing title and using the advanced cryptographic algorithm called the zero knowledge proof. This is actually something that's achievable. This is actually something that's being developed actively in the Bitfan company in the African-based land titles. Go to next slides. Yeah, actually, yeah, I sort of jumped ahead of myself. So I was mentioning about the proof of tenants, and what I mean is those are critical moments. They can actually be jotted down onto the blockchain as a publicly provable like memories instead of something like that's paper-based. And why is it useful? First thing is easily portable. It's on the digital chain. It's not like the paper trail. And every time you move your phone, you don't need to worry about, okay, I lost my say graduate diplomas. I lost my marriage certificate, for example. And then the second benefit is instead of being stored in a centralized entity, which may actually have the database problem, the database may be like erroneously deleted, for example. This on-chain based proof mechanism actually you can be pretty sure that in pretty much no cases there's any way that your important say diplomas or certificate can be deleted ever because it's on blockchain. Actually, yeah, before I move on, if you have time, I will recommend you to check out this called POEP.xyz. This is actually a pretty popular website for Web3 folks. So basically, it's one representation what I mentioned for like those like notable and on-chain provable important memorable moments. Yeah, give it a try actually if you have. And let me go to the next one. So this one, it will be a little bit hard to understand actually. How many people have heard of like creators economy first? And yeah, that's it. So some people have heard of creators economy. So before I jump into like what does it even mean by value additive creators economy for you, I need to explain what is creators economy. So right now, in the Web2 world, it's more like a value extractive economy. Let's say based on a SaaS model, you actually subscribe to Netflix. The cost is pretty low because it has a pretty large user base, but still you need to actually pay the money to Netflix, and you don't have a chance to say create anything creative on this platform. And on the flip side, there are some Web2 companies that sort of like help out the creators. Like for example, some social media companies, like for example YouTube, you can actually sort of monetize when you upload the videos. You have a pretty high viewer counts, you have pretty good like likes, and then you can actually monetize that into your monthly income stream. And that's what it means by the creators economy. It means when those like big tech actually all those like technology companies, when they build some like foundational platform, they can actually help those like small individuals like each one of us here to actually make some like extra income that was not previously possible prior to the internet era. So that's what it means by creators economy. But with the Web2 creators economy, it may not be value additive, but rather value extractive. And let me go to next slide to explain why is that. So, in order to distinguish what's value additive versus value extractive, so we need to look at the current state of the art in Web2 companies. Like for example, with the social media companies in Web2s, like for example, like Facebook. When you use Facebook, you pretty much give up on your privacy. You don't, and sorry if there's any Facebook employees here. Yeah. So pretty much, pretty much you actually give up on the your privacy because you actually sort of implicitly allow Facebook to track your privacy until the iOS 14.5, I think, which introduce some like privacy policy, but still it will explicitly ask for your privacies, and if you bring your privacy to Facebook, it means Facebook actually use your privacy to sell to like the advertisers and other third parties. But after Facebook actually take the whole share of your privacy data and make the multiple gains, you will not be able to get a share of that. So that's what it means by value extractive. So it essentially means those five big techs can actually gain all the values from you, but you have nothing to gain back. And why Web3 is different? In Web3 world, it's actually possible that you as the end user, those like every one of us, the individual little guys, we can actually also get a share of it. And then the creators who actually help, say, monetize on the platform, not only they can gain the income stream, but they can also gain some additional benefits that's not possible previously on the Web2 platform. Like for example, they don't need to worry about like their accounts being like completely abandoned, and then their follower base gets like completely lost because of the permanent ban, for example. And I don't want to like dive into all the value additive examples. I just want to dive into this small angle, which is the NFT marketplace. And let me go to next slide to explain. So yeah, let's use this NFT minting as a hypothetical example. So first, let's say there's a creator, which is an artist. They actually created a new NFT art collection. And they want to actually make so such that they want to allow the market to make like 10,000 supplies with each NFT initial minting price of 0.1 Ethereum. So hypothetically, the creator can collect 1,000 Ethereum in total, and then each one minting cost is 0.1 Ethereum. Does that make sense so far? Yeah. And let's go to next slides. Yeah. So then the collector one, they actually pay. So they actually minted with 0.1 Ethereum, but this art is so valuable, so the marketplace, the market value actually increased from 0.1 Ethereum to 0.2 Ethereum. And then the next person actually comes in, just want to buy it from the first person. Then the next person will actually pay more, right? And then the first person will actually have a 0.1 Ethereum in the gross profit. But it's only a gross profit, not the net profit, because there will be some payouts to the creators. So there's a new term called the royalties. I don't know, maybe I guess only some of you heard of this term. What it means is when the later transaction happens, some part of the transaction will go to the original creator's pocket. And in this case, let's say it's only 5%. So creators will actually earn the 0.0025 Ethereum. And then some portion will go to the marketplace. And I'm using OpenSea's marketplace fee standard here. So it will make the 0.00125 Ethereum here. And then collector one nets 0.0925 Ethereum in pocket. So yeah, I don't really see why is it value additive, because in this case, the collectors, the decentralized marketplace, and also the original artists, they all benefit from those transactions, so that's like innovative business model with it was not possible in Web2 because it was like zero-sum game. Go to the next slide. So yeah, I want to briefly touch on the use case 4, which can make which NFT can be used as a spam-resistant social web primitive. And yeah, this is a screenshot I shot from Vitalik. So basically, he was saying, so this is a spam account, and this is the real Vitalik, by the way. So with the spam account, Vitalik was say tweeting, okay, we are distributing the Ethereum to celebrate the merge, but it's actually a scam. And then the real Vitalik says, if actually Twitter can decentralize its APIs and let the third party to partially solve those like spams and pause problems, it'll be a lot better than trying to do it by itself. But Twitter needs to do some bridging to make this possible. And I just want to briefly touch, and I don't want to dive too deep because yeah, Robert will talk about the decentralized identity in depth. So what's happening in this case is the verified account, they may get impersonated, they may get purchased in the black market. And what that means is when they actually relog in with a new IP, they will still be able to log in because they have all the credentials. So and then this verified account becomes very dangerous, right? And I want to propose a short-term NFT model decentralized identity solution. So right now, because Twitter already has this NFT profile implemented, which means Twitter has a one-to-one relationship stored for its user profile to its actual wallet holding. When the new IP login is happening, they can actually Twitter will detect there will be a new IP, and then it will ask the wallet owner to actually re-sign the same signing message. And the beauty of the blockchain, and in this case, the NFT model identity is that when the user actually needs to re-sign the message, because they don't own that wallet and they don't know the private key associated with that wallet, even if they have the credentials, their username, the login password, the email, the telephone number, etc., they still won't be able to log in because they don't know the private key and they don't know how to actually sign the message. And the signing message will always fail, indicating this account got compromised in whatever way. Yeah, and in the long run, it will be definitely a lot more complicated than that because what I propose is still sort of like centralized because it relies on Twitter to centralize the centrally actually know those like one-point relation mappings, which is not very blockchain primitive. And before I actually brag too much about the usefulness of NFTs and the blockchains, I want to talk about some state of the art and actually make people realize it still has a long way to go actually, because I think it's quite important to acknowledge those areas of improvements as well. So one thing I've heard frequently is NFT to the 1 billion users. The slogans like this. It's a beautiful slogan, but it's not quite there yet. So blockchain has layers of infrastructures. The layer 1 means it's like the public foundational blockchain that actually provides those like programmable decentralized applications capabilities. And the problem with L1 is they are usually pretty slow. They're pretty heavily congested with all sorts of like compute storage, all those different like Ethereum virtual machine based executions. And then here comes the layer 2 applications. The notable ones like the zero knowledge rollups, the Arbitrum examples. They are like still like the half-baked step together. And using some simple back of the envelope calculation, it's impossible to achieve 1 billion users at its current state. So that's something that people really need to take in mind. And then there's other stuff like the NFT marketplace standard is not fully stabilized yet. So remember the royalties I mentioned previously, the creators can actually collect 5%. But there's a great debate on this. Why creators, once they actually issue their first actions, why can they even like keep earning money even if they do nothing? And that actually has a lot of debate right now. And some people actually propose like 0% royalty fee, meaning the creators have to keep creating those innovative contents. Otherwise, they don't get more royalty fees. And also the general entry barrier to Web3 is just very high. Not just high, but also very high in my opinion. You need to know a lot of like primitives like the decentralized wallets, and also, yeah, sometimes trading those like virtual currency, virtual crypto is just very confusing. And also the perception is not there because people are more like neutral to negative to crypto in general. Right, and also the NFTs scams and stealings. And what I mean by NFT is usually self-custody means you own the NFT completely, you own its access, you own its ownership, and then you have the private key, public key pairs as well. And if your private key ever exposed to the scammers, then they just steal your NFTs. That can be very scary, right? Because as opposed to just say your bank account may be compromised, but with suspicious like large transfers withdrawals, bank will usually like not just approve, they'll actually pop in the middle and then try to contact you in 10 words to make sure it is a legitimate transaction. But with like Web3, there's no middleman to do the cut. It just gets still. And that's why it's like all over the news nowadays. Like, okay, this NFT with over 100K in USD dollar term gets stolen again. And I want to briefly touch on the DeFi insurance. This may be a little bit advanced topic. Has anyone heard of DeFi insurance before? Yeah, that's a couple of things. So what DeFi insurance means is it's a self-custodial insurance that you can buy from a decentralized marketplace to protect yourself against like the stealing, etc. So let's say, for example, the Celsius Voyager goes like bankruptcy, right? Has anyone?
Healthy.
Yeah, has anyone wondered, like, in case of Celsius and Celsius and Voyager bankruptcy, do you have any way to protect yourself? Like, is there any sort of insurance you can buy to protect yourself? The answer is actually yes, although it may not be what you think. So as contrary to the traditional like insurance companies, like the State Farm, for example, those traditional insurance companies will not provide you insurance coverage against crypto at all. That just doesn't make sense for them. But there's the decentralized alternative, which actually you can buy those like decentralized insurance, and then you can protect against the company's like bankruptcy. It's sort of like the credit default swap, but it's in the crypto world, and the cost can be pretty low depending on which custodian you're talking about. And in this case, however, in this case, the NFT case, because NFT is even more riskier than those like custodians, like the Voyager Celsius, it's just impossible to get any DeFi insurance or any like NFT stealing at all, actually. So that's also another thing to keep in mind. You don't have enough shield if you have too much valuable NFTs. Yeah, and there are so many more problems to solve, which I probably won't dive too deep because I feel like that might just confuse everyone. And thank you for coming. Is there any question? Yeah.
Like the title transfer. If people can steal NFT, then how can you guarantee that title transfer is authentic, unique, all those things?
Yes, that's why the zero knowledge proof is necessary. So zero knowledge proof, what it means is like I can tell you that I own this house, and I have no way to fake to say I own the house that I actually don't own, because using this advanced cryptographic algorithm, then it's easily exposable to say you are lying, you don't own this house. And that cryptographic algorithm interaction, those the token model, the token standard can be an NFT in this case. It's a pretty technical term. If you are interested, I can also send you some links if you want to learn more about it.
But I mean, in the future, there's no need for notarization, so everything can be done quickly.
I don't know if it will be like purely decentralized, to be honest. There may be a middle ground, I feel like. But like for example, if there is some like technical issue with this like zero knowledge proof, I feel the escrow on the notary may still be needed. But in normal case, the land transfer, the land title transfer may not be needed I may not need those like intermediary actually. That's not the way I feel. It will probably be somewhere in between.
The benefit will be faster, easy to check.
And trustless, no intermediary.
You get a chance to talk about the concept of a total-based identity. So instead of having a private key, it's connect to yourself in a biological way.
Yeah, it's not the only solution. It can be other based, like the biological or geo-based. I just proposed one way that's more like resilient than how it's being done currently.
The questions. So maybe a little not super related with our presentation today, but since you're working on Twitter, and I was curious, like, because you're going to share something about in terms of overall vision. At Twitter, you have the Hackathon profile and how Twitter plans to introduce like NFTs, so the platform to reach out to more retail users.
Sorry, I cannot.
Oh, then okay.
say that. Yeah.
Sure, okay. What about Instagram?
Well,
Since Instagram also have like an NFT.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, based
what
on
were you
profile.
thinking about your product?
So one thing is they're visual based. So NFT also has the visual appeal usually. So that sort of like naturally fits into their platform. But like just showing off NFT on the platform, like if that's the end state, it doesn't help to bridge to the value additive creators economy, as I mentioned previously. Because in case of a permanent ban on Instagram, you lose your follower space. You have to rebuild on a different platform or using a new account.
It's not a live yet. You just talk about the ones to enable an NFT on the platform.
I thought they sort of enabled.
Okay.
Yeah. On 4 different blockchains.
Okay.
Yeah, any other questions?
Sorry, one question is, people say it's not your key, not your point. If you say, you have to, basically, you only own the coin when you. On the opposite side, I feel like it's a little risky, because if you lose the key, you lose everything. Is there any, like, backup key, like you can use today, as your example in a bank example, like you can contact something or backup key, make sure it's not as risky.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think so right now the self-custodial way, yeah, as you mentioned, it will not lead to mass adoption, I believe. I feel like it needs to be somewhere between like completely non-custodial to completely custodial, probably something like semi-custodial. What that means is like you do own the key, but in case you actually lost the key, you can actually recover your account with like traditional Web2 approach. Let's say, okay, I lost my key, can I actually recover using my email address? It sounds like it's impossible, but actually one was able to do this, which is called Argent. If you never heard of Argent, I actually recommend you give it a try. It's a pretty good one. What it does is actually you self-custody your private keys, but you also do to KYC yourself. You need to register your email, your phone numbers, your real names, etc., and also your passwords. And in case you actually lose your private keys, you can actually recover using your email account. And actually, after 48 hours, Argent will be able to recover your wallet. So in future, I don't know the semi-custodial wallet will be exactly like that, but I feel like that's something that will lead to mass adoption. Something like that. Yeah, that's a good question.
What do you spell on?
ARGENT. Yeah, you can search on the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. It should be pretty easy. Cool. And yeah, feel free to follow me on Twitter if you do use Twitter. Yeah, we have 3 more minutes if there's more questions.
So is Argent based on kind of a multi-sig?
No, it's not multi-sig. It's just a single private key. with the recovery mechanism, which makes it unique.
Isn't it going a little backwards to the centralized?
That's right. That's why I don't think it will be exactly like that, but it will probably something like that, somewhere in the middle. It will be a combo of like Web2 and Web3 because the account recovery mechanism in Web2 is something that's pretty valuable. We do need to admit that because we forget about password all the time. And not to say those complicated private keys.
Where do you see Twitter standing in this new era of Web3?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
That's probably related to where.
Yeah.
where you-
I'm not representing Twitter for this session, by the way. I see Twitter as a, it will be part of the Web3 primitive stack, I feel. It will probably be the discovery layer in the SocialFi area. Discovery meaning it can actually help people to discover new projects, new marketplace, new technologies in a more accessible ways, in a more decentralized ways, and help people understand those emerging new technology area in Web3, like for example, OpenSea and MetaMask, Ethereum, all those Web3 technology providers. In brief, I see Twitter as a discovery layer for Web3.
Yeah, I also see there's a Lens, a decentralized
Yes.
social protocol.
Yes,
Do you see that is like threatened to Twitter or?
Yeah, so that goes back to my previous point. Right now, the blockchain stack cannot scale to 1 billion users. So right now, Lens protocol, it has no way to scale to 1 billion users. So no, not a stack. Cool, we are free right now.
Thank
Cool,
you.
thank you.
All right, maybe one break. Okay, we got 10 minutes break, and feel free to grab some pizza, and we have some drinks. I'm sorry I didn't got a plate, but we got a lot of cups. Trying to figure it out. Yeah, you guys are engineers, so you know. All right, so feel free to grab anything here, and we will be back in, let me see, 10 minutes. All right, 5:10. We'll be back. Yeah. Yeah, feel free to grab something.
啊，时间不够，太忙了，那个题，会那个题挺好，下次吧，下次。哎，那个要30，应该有吧？什么时候来？啊，那你听下一场，下一场第3个赛。我讲的是 NFT real world use case，可以听下去。我百度染的还是？
就是太苍老了
啊，一个纯粹的感觉，对，微软之前原公司的变化，然后之前也是微软在，现在在谷歌。然后也是微软。
我去，我曾经很早，然后
现在是创业创业，
我上去，
然后他是在 Web3其实还有自己的然后很领先有些network 也
我就跟他们也有不同技术，然后那个英语太做业务啊，当时这个东西对 UCS 对，就跟一个 X 台湾的一个现在
而且它那个有些方面很有自己的路程，就很有远见，就是 perception 是不是领先于现在？
一会儿有我没有，后来
对，就
你在跟我说你的吗？ 是文章上面不是
对，你用我用你的。他们线上可能有人会问问题。And we will start in 2 minutes.
Let's get back to the.
All right, okay. I saw a lot of conversations in the room and new friends, old friends. Yeah, so let's welcome Robert. Robert has been in Web3 for quite a long time and worked with Web2 and Web3 in the past decades, right? So Robert is going to talk about decentralized identity in Web3. And I'm really curious about this topic because we in Hackout, we are going to develop something similar, but in different context. So Robert, yeah, so let's give round of applause.
Thank you, thank you. Thanks a lot for the opportunity to speak here. And I'm Robert Mao, and I'm a founder and CEO of ArtBlock. So what ArtBlock is ArtBlock, we're actually a startup that's building for the developers. Before I start, I want to know how many of you are developers who write code? Awesome, almost. Yeah, somebody in the online are developers. Awesome. Yeah. So since there's a lot of developers here, so I'm going to try to be more technical, a little bit more technical. So my goal for this talk is after you listen to my talk, I wish you get some ideas of what exactly is Web3. Because Web3 sounds like a buzzword. And what exactly is decentralized identity? And why I think decentralized identity is so important for Web3, even there are two different concepts. And the last but the most important, if you really want to develop a Web3 application, if you really want to adopt decentralized identity in your project, how to get started. Right? So this is a if I can do this, that's a goal, right? So the first part is what exactly is Web3? Honestly, I don't know what exactly is Web3 because there's no clear concept. What is Web3? And even you ask yourself, what is Web1? What is Web2? No definition at all. So, so fortunately, as introduced, is I actually get into the internet for a very long time. So I would say I experienced Web 1, and also I experienced Web 2.0, and now I'm also building Web 3. So I have the fortunate to experience like a full cycle of the web becoming mainstream. So sometimes when people ask me what exactly Web 3, I would say, I don't know what is Web 3. So Web 3, Web 3 is a marketing buzzword. It's a buzzword. Right? So, and before this Web 3 become Web 3, it has a few other nicknames. A very popular nickname is called the DApps, which is decentralized applications. So the DApps concept was very popular in around like year 2017, when if you look at the Ethereum's white papers, so the Ethereum white paper, Vitalik, right, is all about the DApps, because when Ethereum was forming, so the goal is building a blockchain that can power DApps, decentralized apps. Right? And there's another buzzword called blockchain 3.0. And when I started ArtBlock, so blockchain 3.0 is the most popular term. And so what exactly is blockchain 3.0? So the idea of blockchain 3.0 is the original idea is blockchain has 3 generations. Right? The first generation of blockchain is, of course, Bitcoin. So why it's called Bitcoin? Why it's called blockchain 1.0? Because Bitcoin is a very simple blockchain, and on the blockchain you only have transaction data. So only transaction data on the blockchain, and then Ethereum come out. The biggest innovation for Ethereum is only Ethereum is not only the transaction data, it's also have the code. So that code, Ethereum, Vitalik is a great marketer, give it an amazing name called smart contract. So unfortunately, smart contract on Ethereum is not smart. It's also actually is not actually a contract. It's more like a stored procedure. I remember Vitalik once tweeted, say, I kind of regret it. It should better maybe call that stored procedures or on-chain program. So one of the very popular blockchain, Solana, I would categorize Solana as a blockchain 3.1, one of the blockchain 3.0, blockchain 3.0. So the blockchain 3.0 is more focused on applications. So the idea is blockchain can not only used for cryptos, for issue coins or write smart contract, it can also be extended to build a lot of more applications for many other use scenarios. So fortunately, in Solana, if you look at the Solana's development menu, there is no smart contract. It's called on-chain program. All the Solana's smart contract actually called on-chain program, which I think is more precisely describe what exactly it is. So Web3 concept, from my point of view, they're exactly the same thing of the DApp. It's also exactly the same thing of blockchain 3.0. It's just a better name. So I think the first person who coined Web 3.0 was actually before Bitcoin. At that time, Web 2.0 was a trend. Now, of course, a lot of people who want to create something that is new, they say, hey, since there's already Web 2.0, let's do something called Web 3.0. So at that point, Web 3.0 basically means semantic web. Basically, the idea is we adding something, some information, some knowledge graph into the web so that machine can easier understand what the website means. It can eventually build a better search engine, and so that was the original concept of Web 3.0. But the Web 3, I believe this is Gavin Wood's idea. Gavin Woods was the CTO of Ethereum. So he basically coined this idea by himself to kind of to make it different between semantic web, which is called Web 3.0. He changed that to Web 3. So if you are familiar with Ethereum development, you will see one of the very important library in the Ethereum's client-side library is called the Web3.js. So that's the first time that Web3 gets picked up. And of course, I think this is a great marketing term. So a lot of people begin to more like this Web3 concept. So why not adopt it? So I think we can just embrace whatever concept the market really like. But I'm still trying to help everybody understand what exactly Web3 is. Right? So I like this picture. Is basically this is in Chinese is 盲人摸象. I think there's also a story in the English version is the elephant and 7 blinds. Right? So the story is a few blind people, so they want to understand what the elephant is. So they all try to touch it. So somebody eventually say, "Hey, I know what elephant is. Elephant is basically like a big tree, like a trunk of the tree, because he touched the leg of the elephant." And somebody else say, "Oh, it's like pipes, right? Or it's like snakes, because we touch the nose of the elephant." Right? So basically, because the elephant, I think when we are trying to understand a new technology, we are all kind of like blind people, right? So we see some part of the Web3, some character like this. Oh, we see this is like a trunk, and the other people say, "Hey, this is like a snake." The other people feel this is like a wall. I think they are all correct. Right? So So I think it's not a problem to see the Web3 in many different angles. And we just, everybody can just use their own idea to try to understand this new concept because there's no clear definition of it at all. I kind of pretty like one of the concept recently was coined by a venture capitalist. I think he's Chris Nixon, and he categorized what's the Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3 major difference, like in one sentence. He have this idea, say, hey, Web 1.0 is about read. So because in Web 1, that is a very, very early stage on the web. So most of the users, you can only use a browser to read the web page. The web page you basically feel is like a magazine or newspapers. Can you create your own web page? The only hackers, only developers know how to do it. Most people, 99% of people don't know, can't create anything on the web. And only professionals or developers, hackers, create some very ugly websites. And so that's Web 1. And so the movement of Web 2.0 is basically started with a blog, which is basically like everybody can write your own piece of the web page very easily, just like write a diary. Right? And then there's a social network coming out, like Facebook, Twitters, and anybody can create something and then immediately share it on the website. Right? So that becomes the Web 2.0 movement. So the basically Web 2.0 basically means now 99% of people, you can create whatever you want. And you are not only the consumers, you're also the creators. As a bloggers, you basically become a journalist. You can write your own magazine, publish your own articles. So a few of the very popular websites like TechCrunch, Mashable, they're not professional magazines or media. They're just bloggers, but actually those bloggers turned out into some kind of more. Basically, they have more traffic than the traditional magazine or newspapers. So what Web3 is? Web3 now you can read, write, and another important factor you can have is now you can own. Because so the own basically the first part of own is basically you can own the crypto assets. Like you can own Bitcoin, you can own Ethereum, you can own many other different cryptos, and also you can own NFTs. So basically, based on the blockchain technology, that gives the user the opportunity that if you own some crypto asset on the blockchain, basically somebody just say no private key, no assets, right? That basically means if you control your private key, nobody else, even the developers, the government, or the operator of some blockchain nodes, they cannot easily take that away. But in Web 2 and Web 1, it's very easy, right? So if the folks from Twitter, they can edit to the database, right? They can change whatever you say, and they can, or if you're familiar with WeChat, right? So your account constantly gets blocked. Once you say something which is sensitive, your account is blocked. Boom, it's blocked. Right? Or you're in a group and you're excited talking about something, you find nobody saying response. Why? Because you're blocked, and nobody else actually see what you have said. So that's a typical problem in the Web 2 world. Right? So, but in the Web 3, a very big difference is now the user have the real power and the real control of their own data, their own identity, their own digital assets. So that's kind of like a big change for the Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3. I kind of like this idea. But even this idea sounds pretty cool and easy to understand. Just keep in mind, this is not accurate, this is not precise, right? For example, in Web 1, who said Web 1 I cannot write? I write the web page all the time. or for the web one, right? So it's already be able to write your web page. And who said you cannot own? If you own your server and you keep it safe, you actually still own something, right? This is just to kind of help to understand, easier to understand what's the different generation between the web 1, 2, and the 3. Some other important things, which is probably not fundamental, but I think this is also important, is user experience. So I get this picture from the from the Twitter. So basically, it basically show us in Web 1.0 a typical way for when you log into a website is you have your username, your password. So this is still probably this is still the mainstream. On the Web 2.0. You begin to have this kind of a single sign-on or passport, like Microsoft Passport. Or today you can very easily to sign in with Facebook, sign in with Twitter, sign in with Google's. On the Web 3, if you're familiar with some kind of modern Web 3 applications, it's different. It's no longer let you use your username as password or log in with some social account, but instead they let you to connect a wallet. So I would say this is not exactly what's essential because you can totally build a Web 1 style applications, but require you to connect to the wallet. You can also build a Web 3 application, still use social login. It's not how you divide if this is Web 1 or Web 3. But this kind of user experience make a big difference for the end users, right? So I remember in Web 2.0, there is a very important technology called Ajax. I don't know how many of you still know Ajax. Yeah. So basically, is Ajax something really important for Web 2? Probably not. But that's a very new user experience. If you build a website and you have this kind of Ajax, that your web page does not refresh, you instantly get updates. Your end users, your user will feel, cool, this is a Web 2 web. This is a Web 2.0 application, right? I think the same thing for the Web 3 is if you build a new cool application and but then you ask the user to have the username and login, user will think, no, this is a very old technology. Right? But if you say, hey, connect your wallet, user will immediately feel, wow, cool, this is the Web 3. I think this is just the kind of UX trend. From the Web 1 to Web 3 is more linked to let the user use their wallet to control the identity of the application. So it's a summarize of my personal view of what exactly is Web 3. First of all, it's not well defined. It's more kind of like a marketing buzzword. So just to understand by yourself. Define what Web 3 by yourself, because there's no rules to define it, right? But I still think to see if something is really Web 3, I think is still there's a few things still I think is pretty important. One is I think is it must be decentralized, which is basically this application does not have a single point of failure. Does not there's no third party can delete your account, kind of block your account. If any of those kind of Web3 applications can actually block your account, can actually remove all your kind of delete your articles, right? Remove your balance. That's definitely not Web3 because that's a traditional centralized application that's controlled by somebody else, right? Usually Web3 application, I think it usually can be self-hosted. It's not necessary, but it usually can be self-hosted. Self-hosted basically means I don't depend on any other service providers. I can run by my own. So nobody can stop me from using it. A typical example is like Uniswap. Uniswap is a typical Web3 application. But for most of the users, you just use the standard website from the Uniswap. But recently, SEC tried to ask them to censor a bunch of things, right? So today, if you use the Uniswap standard website, you will not be able to interact with some of the address because those addresses are on the blacklist. However, because Uniswap is a real decentralized app, right? So if you're a developer, you know how to install it. You can install your own version of the Uniswap. That is basically you have your constitution right that nobody can block you, even the US government. Okay? But you just need to know how to self-host Uniswap. So that basically lead to the third thing that which I think which is very important is user need to have the full control of their data, their digital assets and identities. That basically means it needs to be controlled by some private key or something equivalent to the private key. Basically, nobody else can take it away. Only the users can control it. I think it's since a lot of you are technical, I would say from the Web3, from my point of view, I would say a real Web3 application is a protocol over application. A protocol over application basically means since it's a protocol, that basically means any different implementation can actually make it work. You don't have to depend on the one who built this protocol. Right? A typical protocol, for example, for the web HTTP or HTTPS protocol, right? So there's many different type of browsers. You can use any of the browsers you like. Right? There's many different type of web servers, but since they are all speak HTTP, and it just works. Another important thing is if it is protocol, it usually means composable. I think composability is something I think is really important for Web3, and is actually very, very important for the DeFi. So the composability basically means you don't need one of the vendors to kind of compose everything, build everything together for you. Instead, you can have multiple different components that is built by different vendors, and they just work together naturally. Right? For if you're familiar with DeFi, you can use a Uniswap to swap something, and then you immediately after you swap something, you can put that into another like a lending protocol and do something very cool, and all at once. That is basically imagine, right? You can go to the bank, take some money, and use the money to pay your insurance. And so today you cannot do that. You have to do it. Go to the bank, take the money, or you have to go to the insurance company to set up the direct debit. It's not completely automatic, but with I would say this is something going to be very important for the Web3. An important thing I want to highlight is I think Web3 is blockchain agnostic. People naturally think, okay, once it's Web3, it must be something related to blockchain, but actually it's not. Right? So, and blockchain, again, blockchain technology, blockchain is something similar to Web3. What exactly is blockchain? There's no clear definition is what exactly is blockchain. So Web3, I would say Web3 application could be something that is completely not dependent on blockchain. It's totally possible to build some purely peer-to-peer applications that let the user completely control their own data, their own identity, but there's no blockchain involved. Right? But have a blockchain layer could be hugely beneficial for Web3. I think there's two very important parts. One part is tokenomic, because blockchain is about token, and token is something related to the finance. So it's just way much easier to build the incentive layer for your Web3. Right? So make the user be able to earn some money, to use that as an incentive to let the user to participate into your application. Another important factors you have already speak is NFT, non-fungible token. You can use a non-fungible token for a lot of interesting things into the Web3 applications. I want to kind of discuss more about that, but if you are interested in, and so this is something you can consider. So now we come into a totally different territory. The second part is I'm talking about DID. So the DID, decentralized identity, I would say decentralized identity, at least the W3C versions of the decentralized identity is a well-defined, clearly defined computer science concept. So if you're any of you interested in the W3C decentralized identities, you can reference to this URL. So that's DID core. This is one of the first protocols that just to be recognized, become a W3C recommendation in July. So my team is fortunately, we started in year 2018, we started getting involved with DID, W3C called CCG, which is community identity community groups, to build the be a part to build this standard. Right. So the W3C DID actually is very, very simple. It sounds to be a very cool new technology, but actually it's very simple. The W3C DIDs, in detail, you need to be careful. When we talk about DID, sometimes we reference to decentralized identity. Sometimes we also reference that to decentralized identifiers. So there are two very different concepts. For the W3C DIDs, we add S is because W3 DID right out of this protocol, the first protocol becomes the recommendation is only about identifiers. So this is an example of the W3C DID and identifiers. It looks familiar, right? So the W3C DID consists of the three major parts. It started with DID, so it's basically the same thing like HTTP. It means this protocol, this identifier is the DID, right? So the second part is called a method. So the method here, the example I use is the method that we built. Is the ABT is our method. But there's many other methods like DID web. Web is a method. There's also a very popular one called key method, DID key. Microsoft also have a method, right? So the third part is identifier. So basically the W3C DIDs is just to define a very simple format. Say, hey, if you want to build a DID, W3C compatible DID, you need to always have this format, is DID, and then is the method, and then your identifiers. And then the W3C DID recommendation does not give any recommendation or any limitation on how you create these identifiers and how to interpret the identifier. It's all up to the method to interpret what this identifier means and how it works, right? So in the W3C DID, there's another very important concept called the verifiable credentials. So imagine DID decentralized identifier. It's just the identifier. It's just like a string with certain format. But to make the DID really useful, the verifiable credentials is actually a bigger concept that is baked in the W3C DID. So what's the verifiable credentials? The verifiable credentials is actually, it sounds to be a kind of scary concept, but it actually is pretty easy to understand. So what is the credentials in our physical world? A typical credential like our birth certificate, right? So it's basically the government document issued to a baby to certificate. Okay, so when the baby was born, who is the father, who is the mother, right? So this is the typical birth certificate. Another credential we have is driver license. Right? Everybody has a driver license. It's basically DMV issue you something, say prove that you're passed their test. Right? Other examples like the university degrees, like the employment verification letters, which is that many of those are in the physical world are the credentials. It's important to understand that credential is actually not your identity. Credential is actually some third party issued to you, or it also could be self-issued.
Sorry. Oh,
Yeah. Okay. Very low. So what's verifiable credentials? Verifiable credentials is basically it's a kind of data format. So this data format can represent all the same information of your physical residentials. Plus, there's a mechanism in this piece of data that can instantly verify if this data is correct. And also this makes this presidential that is tamper-free. If somebody's trying to modify something, and instantly people can verify that. With today's presidential, like your driver license, it's very easy to forge. So everybody knows that you can forge. Every high school students know how to buy this kind of fake ID so they can buy alcohol. But the verified presidential is basically used, the technology used here, mostly the digital signatures. Use these digital signatures, then you can create a piece of the data, so this data can be instantly verifiable. So when people are talking about the enterprise blockchain applications, I would say 99% of those so-called enterprise blockchain applications, they're actually the use case of verifiable credentials. So in the W3C DID work group, we published one of the document for the DID and verifiable credential use cases. In that use cases, totally about 60 different kind of use scenarios that you can use verifiable credentials to solve this problem, like the verifiable data, the data, auditable trail, many of those. They actually can be solved with the verifiable credentials. So one of the important things I think for the W3C DID is introduce this kind of very simple model to modeling how DID, how the verifiable credentials works. So this model is very simple. And so the model actually consists like 3 characters, one called issuer, another called holder, and the last one called verifiers. Now, this is basically like a triangle model. So basically the concept is an issuer can issue a verifiable credentials to a holder. And when the holder receives that verifiable credentials, it's the holder's responsibility to save and manage these verifiable credentials. Right? So whenever the holder wants to, in some kind of scenario, they need to verify that, the holder is going to present that to a verifier. So the verifier should be able to verify if that verifiable credentials is correct, is issued to that person instantly and cryptographically. So that's basically the whole model of the DID. Right? So this model is actually very easy to understand because I think that the cool thing of the decentralized identity and the verifiable credentials is actually modeling our real world. It's actually modeling the world before we have internet and before we have computer. So what is a imagine like let's use a DMV, a driver license example. So in this case, the DMV issuer is a DMV, right? So the DMV basically you pass the test, they verify all your other documents, and the DMV give you a driver license. So it's a physical card, right? So you have to keep this physical driver license in your wallet, take it all the time. Does the DMV have a copy of that license? Actually not. They only have the record. Say they issued that one of the license to you, and it does not have a copy there. It does not responsible for you or other party to search that record from them. So whenever there is a policeman stop you, pull you over, you basically handle your driver license to the policeman. So usually the policeman, it depends on how bad you are, right? So if it's very simple scenarios, the police officer just look at your ID, it not looks like too fake. They just believe it and they give it back to you and you go down. However, if you involve into some kind of bad situations, the police officer probably say, hey, wait for a second. He's going to go back to the computer and do some search. Right? So that is the part of the verification. But in an even worse situation, the police officer probably going to run a more comprehensive search and kind of try to figure out what exactly you are. So basically, this concept is basically for the issuers and the holder and the verifier. Their responsibility is actually decentralized. In our internet world, right, in a typical Web2 world, so how do you verify your identity? You basically have a username and login. So basically, use your username login, get into the server. So the server confirm that you can log in, and the server going to give you a piece of data stored in the server database. That's becoming your identity, right? So, but in the real world, there's no such a kind of central server exists, right? It all depends on you go to the DMV issue you some license, and then you get pulled over in wherever, and you handle your driver license to the police officer. So the whole W3C DID concept is just to try to model the reality world into this kind of a digital world. So the only difference is now with the digital signatures, so the verification is going to be very fast. So any questions here? Okay. So again, DID is blockchain agnostic. And actually, from the W3C DID, DID does not necessarily need a blockchain at all. So you can totally imagine without blockchain, the human being have survived for so many years, right? For a very long time. So the DID does not really need a blockchain. However, if you have a blockchain, that is if you have a blockchain powered verifiable data registry, that could make a lot of things very easier. So what is a verifiable data registry is basically when the verifier wants to verify something, ideally you can find some place to get some kind of a verification data. So that would make the verification way much easier. So that's basically in the police officer case. So when you evolve into some kind of serious situation, the police officer are going to go back to his car to search a database. So that is a verifiable data registry. So that registry is not, basically the police officer is not completely depends on the driver license you give them. They also have another reference for them to kind of cross-check to ensure this verification is correct. So with the blockchain as the verifiable data registry, it could make the decentralized identity infrastructure way much easier to implement and more secure and also more decentralized. So a very important component for the decentralized DID is a wallet, right? So this wallet, imagine a DID wallet is basically is kind of a digital version of your real wallet in your pocket. If you look at your real wallet in your pocket, imagine what do you put in the pocket, right? in your wallet. You usually have your ID card, your driver license. You have some cash, your basically your currency, your assets. You also have credit cards. Those credit cards is basically like bank accounts or something like that, right? So in the digital version of the identity wallet, you can store your identity, you can store your verifiable credentials, and moreover, you can store your cryptos. Right? So this is to understand this, you can just kind of imagine, hey, this is just a better version of the wallet. What's the major difference of the crypto wallet to your normal wallet? Because your normal wallet, if you put the ID card, your wallet will not tell you this card is fake. But in the crypto wallet, because your wallet is basically usually is run on your mobile phone, which is a supercomputer in your pocket, it can instantly verify everything for you. Right? So when somebody wants to issue you a fake ID, your wallet is going to independently check that for you. When somebody wants to ask you to pay them, if you're in your traditional wallet, you just give them money. The wallet cannot verify for that for you. But in a identity wallet, the identity wallet can verify. If the buyers if the sellers are really the one that claim they are. If they find it failed to verify, your wallet will give you a warning or just to stop the transactions. So ideally, in the future, identity digital wallet will make your digital transactions way much safer. It also protect your privacy. So let's talk about what is not DID. Right? So the DID just become a buzzword. Actually, when we started to work on the DID, nobody talked about DID. And, but recently, when the DID became a W3C recommendation, suddenly, if you look at the blockchain and the crypto space, you can see if it is not like the hundreds, at least there are more than 50 different DID projects. They all claim, hey, we're DIDs. Right? And some of the projects even they change the domain name called DID.id. They say, okay, I'm DID because my name is DID.id. But a lot of them actually are not DID at all. So since the DID is not Web3, DID is a very precise concept defined by W3C. Not like Web3, anybody can define what is Web3. Right? So I usually when I say if somebody say, hey, I have new DID technology, how do I tell if this is the real DID or this is not? I have a few kind of very simple principles. So first of all, any identity technology that is not self-sorted is not a DID. This basically means anything that needs you to register, apply, buy, renew. Hey, you need to pay me like $10 per year, so I was going to give you a Web3 domain name, and which is a DID. No, sorry, this is not. This is definitely not, because you have to pay somebody else, and somebody else can take it away if you don't renew. So that is definitely against the idea of the DID that you have the full control. So any identity service that does not carry your privacy is not DID. Right? So a typical so-called DID project is basically say, hey, I have a typical way is, for example, Web3 user profile page. Right? So once I know your Ethereum address, I'm going to put all your information of your that Ethereum wallet and display in like one big page. Is that DID? I think this is not DID. This is maybe this is used for application, but it's not DID because DID is all about protected user privacy. So, like I think in the crypto space, it's kind of funny. There's always a lot of scammers or a lot of people who are very good at pick up new concept, and it's a really kind of a you have to spend a lot of time to try to kind of distinguish what is the innovation, what is a scam, or what is just some kind of market stunt. Okay, so it's very close to the end. So when DID meets Web3, so after I talked about what DID is and what Web3 is, I think everybody can easily define there's something in common. Right? First of all, they are all care about the decentralization. So the Web3, since the Web3 is trying to protect user privacy and let the user own their own data, is that possible that you don't even own your identity, that you can own your data? No. So that basically means with a decentralized identity as an identity layer for the Web3, that's a very good choice. If you are building applications, say, claim that you let your user own your identity, but actually you can very easily block the user. So that's not actually decentralization, decentralized at all. Another thing in common is blockchain. Both Web3 and DID can take advantage of the blockchain technology, while they're actually not completely depends on blockchain. So the DID and the Web3, they're all about the interoperability, which is basically means different parties. You're not locked into one of the service. Right? Like today, when I use Twitter, I cannot use my Twitter account to talk to Weibo. If I'm using WeChat, I cannot communicate with Telegram. Right? So the Web3 and the DID, they're both care about interoperability, which is not there yet, but that's a vision. Another part is the composability. So I already mentioned this before. So yeah, so this example I have used, this is actually a typical way to build a new Web3 application, and then you can get the identity there, right? In this kind of Connect wallet. Now, for example, my company is building this DID Connect protocol, which is a very simple protocol and a very easy to use library to let you bake that into your application to quickly adopt the identity into your application, to have this kind of Connect wallet and then log into the application effect. Another very popular one is called signing with Ethereum. So that's very much kind of Ethereum centric. But if your application only need to support Ethereum or EVM compatible blockchains, that's a very good choice. Yeah. So so this is basically so with the decentralized identity, and it's just to kind of open up a better space or a better way for the user to, for the developers to build a different application that can be able to work together. Because imagine, like in the past, when we build a software, ideally we want to have different components and we want to reuse other service. But what's the first hurdle when you try to use a different service? I think the first hurdle for me, for myself, is ID different. If I want to kind of build an application that automatically get some price data from Amazon, and then kind of post it to my Facebook, and then probably find something from eBay, I will constantly dealing with different ID problem because I have a different ID in Amazon, different ID in Facebook, and different ID on eBay. Each of them have different username and different credentials to access them. And if I'm trying to put one item, let's say for example this bottle of water, the water in Amazon probably is a number, right? But in the eBay is basically like a random hash, right? And so the ID is not unique. There's no standard way for you to have identifiers. So that's actually the first hurdle where you try to kind of connect different systems together. The W3C DID is actually provide a standard way for you to create identifiers that's suitable across different applications and across different services. And moreover that, I probably, if we want to talk more about that, probably need another hours. But anyway, with identity at the center, it's just easier to build many different components of the Web3 and then make them work together. So I think is so I probably don't have enough time for the demo because of network here, but everybody can try at home because everything is actually just worked, right? So this is the two things that my company built. One is called DID wallet. This is the identity wallet. If you're interested into the DID after the talk, you want to experience, hey, where can I experience what the DID, what the DID is? How can I get that DID for myself? It's very easy. Just download this application. Download this app from it's in Google Play Store and Apple's App Store. You basically just shake the phone, and it's going to, based on your shaking, automatically create one of the identifier for you. So that's the first way to experience what the DID, what DID is. And the DID wallet, we created this DID wallet is not only identity wallet, it's also a crypto wallet. So basically, that basically means use this DID. You can also manage your Ethereum account, your Solana account, any of the different accounts. And of course, that supported very powerful credentials. Another component is called DID Connect. That probably only makes sense for developers. But for any developers, if you want to build a web application, you want to use the DID, and if you want to have this kind of a sign with a wallet, use this DID Connect library. It's just like 2 lines of code, and then you can get, you can have this support. And we also have a playground which you use the React playbook, storybook. So you don't need to write any code. You can use this storybook. You can experience how to connect the DID in different way, how to do this kind of proper credentials, how to do this kind of very powerful presentations, to let the application to verify different verifiable credentials in this playground, and before you even write the code. And if you want to write the code, you can just copy paste the code from this storybook into your own applications. So this is so anybody can try that yourself at home. Yeah, so that is it. And any questions?
It seems to me this kind of technology requires multiple organizations to come up with a standard. So we are all, how are you gonna be able to make money? And be able to push that to get accepted by all the big players, Amazon,
Yeah, so that's basically is why we want to kind of speak with W3C to create a standard, because the central identity protocol itself is actually simple. You just need to be a lot of the different third parties want to support that. So as any of the one startup or as even like large company like Microsoft, it's very hard to build a standard that a lot of people agree on. So that's how W3C as an organization is actually doing the job. Right now, I can't say the DID protocol become recommendation is going to eventually become the de facto standard for the whole industry. But at least at least right now you can see like more than 160 different entity companies, include Microsoft, are pledged to work together to have this as a standard. So for the startup, how to make money to be here. I think that the standard itself is not a business model. So it's more about kind of, for example, for our block itself, our goal is actually building the application frameworks to help the developers to build DApps. For the DID part itself, probably it's not be able to directly generate revenue in the near term.
I saw a viewpoint say Web3 is kind of open source with business model, with real business model. So how do you see that viewpoint, and how does your company profit or benefit from those protocols for free for everyone?
Yeah, so I think this is basically two questions, right? So one part is like Web3 is open source model with business model, open source plus business model. And the second question is how our blog is going to be able to make money from that, right? So the first question I think so this is actually one of the beautiful part of the crypto and blockchain. Is basically it's possible to build application in open source, right? So so a long story short is open source model has been proven to be very successful on the technology side, but the problem is a typical case is Amazon. Nobody from Amazon here, right? Like for example, a typical case like Amazon take a lot of open source components like Elasticsearch, like Redis, and they turn them into very profitable AWS service. And those open source team does not make any money or make very little money from that, but the Amazon make a huge amount of money. This sounds not reasonable, but it's totally legal and totally doable because the open source model, you yourself decided to contribute that as an open source, anybody can use, right? So the Web3, the beautiful part of Web3 is try to kind of build a new business model. So first of all, for example, some of the protocols try to build a token-based model, and so you can still use the open source technology, but you have to use some kind of certain tokens, right? So the token basically means it's something that is tangible, but the value could be changed. Right? In the beginning, because nobody uses that, the token is very cheap or even free, right? Or free generated. But in the future, when this service become really valuable, the protocol can capture the value into the token, and the token become more valuable. And hopefully, so whoever owns the token can make more money. Right? So this is basically in the Web3, I think there's many different type of business models. Some of them try to just sell the token. Some of them try to sell them as NFT. Some of them try to make money from the NFTs trade, like a royalty fee or something else. But let me tell you how ArcBlock is going to make money. So ArcBlock's vision is exactly formed from how Amazon is, screwing up the whole open source community. So the bigger vision of the ArcBlock is trying to build so basically the DID and DID is just a small piece of our full ArcBlock architect. The bigger architect of ArcBlock is we call the blocklet framework. So the blocklet framework is basically a concept that is a reusable component. So you can use multiple different reusable components. You can use this component together to build a application. But we use NFT. We use a non-fungible token as a software license for each of those kind of blocklet. That basically means if you build application and you are reusing a bunch of other components that are built by others, you basically need to acquire the non-fungible token from the other blocklet developers. When your blocklet eventually making money, so the money is automatically revenues. Basically, there's a on-chain revenue split based on how many different components you have been used. So this is basically like when you create a software, you basically have a bunch of partners to work together, but you automatically form a contract. But this contract is not on paper, but this contract is on the blockchain. And this contract is, the contract itself is proved by NFT. And when the software is beginning to generate revenue, so no matter the revenue is kind of per install based, or the revenue is based on the subscription based, the revenue is going to be automatically split based on the smart contract. And hopefully this build a way much better ecosystem that can fix the problem of the open source community. So this is basically the ArcBlock's bigger vision and the bigger and the business model. So we're still yet to be there, but we have built everything. We are building most of the stuff that is actually already working. So DID is one of the important pieces of the ArcBlock.
Yeah, so if you want to reach out to Robert, you can just ask him for LinkedIn or whatever. Yeah, thank you. And here comes to the last piece from today's presentation, which is a early announcement from what HackHub is trying to do. We are going to launch a non-transferable token. We didn't code it as a DID because it's not following any DID standard from the web W3C. So we are launching this non-transferable token for a decentralized portfolio or a resident. So if you don't know HackHub, we start with a training institution in Vancouver. We launch our online training school, which has some certification for programming. And also now we have some Web3 related courses as well. And we have our hackathon platform launched in 2018. We have over 250 hackathons run on our platform, and over 2,000 projects has been formed on HackHub. So we were thinking of, how about we build a portfolio on HackHub that you can store your own achievements, including your certification from training, your portfolio pieces come from hackathons, as well as your maybe work experience. So it's like a decentralized LinkedIn in the future. So we developed this smart contract. We follow the NTT standard, not the DID standard. So you can mint it to your wallet and store all the metadata in a decentralized storage, encrypted. So like what Robert just said, DID should have privacy considered, and everything that you stored in your Hackup XPath is encrypted. No one can steal it or visit it without your permission to decrypt. So we are going to launch this in October 17th for wireless Mint, and then October 18th for public Mint. And there's another cool thing about XPath is we are going to launch a thing called subcontract. So basically, any developer who wants to develop something on top of XPath, you are able to do it. For example, let's say a training school here in Seattle who want to develop their own NFT or NTT as a certification or a badge. You can develop a subcontract which can be registered to XPath and stored in the entity that like I own or like someone owns. So it's highly extensible, and we consider the privacy as the most important part. And the data is stored in your control, in your wallet, instead of stored in a centralized location in LinkedIn, something like that. And our vision is in the future, everyone that you want to go to look for a job, or you want to apply to school, you are able to disclose your previous history, portfolio, or resume from your XPath to a third-party application platform. So that's our vision. And we will open up the first 2,500 XPaths for free to mint. As Robert mentioned, we are not charging for minting. You just pay your gas fee. And here is our roadmap. After our first batch launch, we will have a second batch as well. And then we are going to launch something very similar to what Robert just mentioned. You are able to code to earn, because on your portfolio, you are able to mint your own NFT projects into your portfolio. Basically, the project could be a code base, could be any artwork, could be anything. And then we are going to launch our marketplace in the future, potentially. So there's a lot of potential with this XPath. And if you're interested, today you can just like follow us on Twitter. Like our Twitter account is HackUp.io, and you can just tag 3 friends and the hashtag HackUpXPath, and we will grant you a whitelist for Mint. And yeah, hope you can provide some feedback. You can join our Discord channel, and you can come up with your own idea about how to use XPath, and we are able to grant you the permission to develop a subcontract if you want. Yeah. Thank you for joining today's HackUp Web3, Hello Web3 meetup, and thank you for interest in all the topics that we talked about. Thank you, Robert and Siyu, for joining this meetup. And we are planning to have this meetup once a month. And now we have Vancouver and Seattle, and we are looking for expanding to other cities as well. Thank you so much. And yeah, looking forward to see you again. We still have some pizza if you want to grab.